Why bother going on?
You haven't seen the world, so you don't know.
Introducing the type of the zombies in the world of The Last of Us. Zombies in the world of The Last of Us do not have a fixed form, but they experience various change and developments during their lifetime. In this article, we review the 6th stage of the cordyceps infection development process.
You were someone's.
You trust me?
What distinguishes the monster of the world of The Last of Us from the usual zombies is that they are not moving corpses, but they are living people whose brains have been held hostage by the cordyceps fungus infection. They are considered a new animal species, and like any other animal, they continuously evolve throughout their life. So what makes them especially scary is that disintegrators do not have a fixed form, but rather become a unique trait during each of the different stages of their evolution. So in this article, we will review the 6th stage of the development of cordyceps fungus with the help of biology and talk about those zombies that have not yet appeared in the TV series The Last of Us.
Why bother going on?
For family.
Runners. Depending on the location of the bite, humans turn into the zombies called runners at least 15 minutes and at most 24 hours after being infected with the cordyceps fungus. If you were to ask fans of The Last of Us game to rank the zombies in the world of these games based on how terrible they are, runners would most likely rank at the bottom. It is normal. After all, runners are the weakest enemies in the game, and eliminating them until they attack en masse will be faster and easier than the more threatening zombies in the game. Also, since they are considered the first stage of the fungus's development process, the victims lack the mutated, multifaceted appearance of more evolved zombies. But here's the thing. The possibility that your opinion about runners will change at the end of these explanations, and that they will be upgraded to the scariest zombies in the world is very, very high. Stalkers. The second phase of cordyceps infection begins 1 week to 1 month after infection, and its development continues for 1 year. At this stage, the victims are known as stalkers or lurkers. The most important physical change of the decomposers at this stage is that the growth of the fungus, which was hidden in the interior of the skull until now, has now made its way to the external surface of body. The lack of space in the skull has caused the fungus to grow out of the pores that are closer to the brain. At this stage, the fungus is covering the entire eye area, and as a result, the eyes are becoming increasingly useless. In fact, one of the identifying factors of stalkers is that most of them have lost at least one of their eyes completely. The disintegrated in the 2nd stage have not yet undergone a significant physical transformation, so we have to look inside their bodies to find their main changes. The first thing that makes stalkers more challenging enemies than runners is their physical strength. In The Last of Us games, Joel is depicted as a thick-necked, burly, one-armed, middle-aged man who can knock out a grown man with his fists and is able to tackle multiple runners at the same time, leaving them to suffer a similar fate with his barbands. A slow Joel is strong, and there is no doubt about it. However, Joel's physical strength failed in the face of stalker. He takes much more effort to take down stalkers compared to the runners. But here's the thing. It's not that Joel has gotten weaker. It's the stalkers that have gotten stronger by breaking the biological lock on humans that limits our true potential. In other words, as the result of the development of the cordyceps fungus, the infected do not miraculously acquire superhuman strength, but the cordyceps release the untapped strength that has always exists in humans.
It ends the way it ends.
Clickers. The name of The Last of Us is tied to the faceless face of the clickers. They may not be strongest enemies in The Last of Us games, but they are undoubtedly the most iconic villains of this war. Victims reach this stage after at least 1 year of being infected with the cordyceps fungus. Their feet are bare and their rotting and tattered clothes are last sign of the body's previous owner. Gradually, a kind of fungal coating has grown on the surface of the shoulders, chest, abdomen, and legs of the clickers. They will grow up in the future and cover their whole body with the thick armor covering that we see in stage 4. But the biggest transformation of the clickers compared to the second stage can be seen in their head area. The skull of the victims has exploded from inside due to the blooming of the fungus. As a result, their upper jaw is split in half due to the pressure, making their jaws a more effective weapon for tearing and tender flesh for the victim's neck. Although the clickers have lost their former eyes, nose, and lips and mouths, their ears are still intact. The reason is simple. Clickers use the clicking sound they produce and the resulting echoes in the environment to locate the prey. As a result, the cordyceps fungus has recognized the ears as an organ whose survival depends on their function and has reduced the growth of the fungus in this area as much as possible. This doesn't mean that the fungus itself consciously decided where to grow and where not to grow. Instead, the healthy ear of clickers can be the result of the natural selection. Natural selection is the process in which individuals adapted to the environment have a greater chance of survival and reproduction and can pass their genes to the next generation. On the other hand, people incompatible with the environment are removed from the species and cannot transmit their genes. As a result, those hereditary traits that increase the probability of survival and reproductive success of an organism in the population spread. Therefore, probably those clickers who had their ears open had a better chance to survive and hunt and kill more survivors, and those clickers who had lost their ears were not successful enough and finally are extinct. But the question is, why the cordyceps fungus has grown in the area of the nose, eyes, and the forehead. Inside the skull, there is a large and air-filled chamber called sinus cavity, which is located behind and above the nose in the middle of the face. One of its functions is to make our skull lighter so that there is a less pressure on your neck. But this chamber, which is covered with mucus, is dark, warm, and moist. And all these characteristics make it an ideal place for fungus to grow. This chamber has filled with fungus over time and has blown the victim's face.
Be careful who you put your faith in. The only people who can betray us are the ones we trust.
Shamblers. What makes shamblers such an amazing beast is that they are more a version of blotters than a completely new species. The point is this. We know that according to a scientific theory of evolution, life in its most concise definition is a product of a reaction to the environment. This means that during the process of natural selection, Those organisms that are compatible with the environment have a better chance of survival and reproduction and can pass their genes to the next generation. Over time, this process can lead to the adaptation of the organism to a special habitat and may eventually lead to the emergence of a new species. In other words, the shamblers prove that the four stages of the development of organisms are not necessarily the same everywhere in the world, but environmental factors and weather can affect the evolution of the infection and cause the emergence of a new unique animals. For the first time in the game, The Last of Us 2, we encounter shamblers, and most of the story of this game takes place in the coastal city of Seattle. A city that is not only very rainy and has a high humidity in the normal state, but this city is a flood-prone city as a strip of land that is located between Lake Washington and the Pacific Ocean. So it is no wonder why many parts of this city have been flooded in the 25 years since the collapse of the society. The in-game notes imply that the shamblers mutated as a result of Seattle's heavy rain and high humidity. Shamblers do not have the armor cover of the blotters. Instead, their whole body is covered with a pus blister and the skin inflammation. Fungal growths around and inside the mouths of the shamblers have locked their jaws, making them unable to bite their prey. Instead, the shamblers have acquired an alternative weapon during their mutation. As soon as the shamblers get close to the player, they shoot a green poisonous gas that causes severe burns and even death to the victim. Also, immediately after being killed, they explode with a violent force, releasing a cloud of poisoning spore from themselves that deal a heavy damage to the player. Although shamblers work very slowly, they can enter running mode if they know the presence of the player.
None of this shit was even about me!
Get ready to run.